Welcome everyone to the Pyrenees National Park in France. When I reached Refuge de Pombie on the 142nd day of my trip through Europe, it was raining heavily. I wanted to set up my tent by the lodge, but I think that when the lodge manager saw me from the window, she took pity and waved me in, even though the lodge was closed for renovations. And so, I spent the night in the basement part of the lodge, where there is a winter refuge for wandering skiers. Thanks to that, my clothes were only slightly damp the following day, and completely dried on the way further east. As you can see, the landscape was recovering from the overnight rainfall, and the views of Vallée d'Aspe were all the more beautiful. When I crossed the border again at the Spanish glacial lake, I had a view of the Pyrenees that lie east of the Somport Pass. On the horizon, I could also see the iconic shape of Pic du Midi towards which I was heading. As you can see, this is a beautiful place to spend the night. But if you prefer a solid roof over your head, walk all the way to the Somport Pass. However, I suggest you keep enough time in reserve for the rest of the journey, because when you reach the valley of this stream, you will be treated to a breathtaking view of the deep forests of the French northern slopes. The first mentions of crossing the Pyrenees through this particular pass date back to the 5th century. An interesting fact is that you can find two tunnels in here. One railway tunnel from 1928, which was closed in 1970 after an accident, and one road tunnel, the construction of which the French protested for almost 20 years. If you're interested in the history of the pass, do not hesitate to go to the nearby town of Urdos for a day trip, as I did the following day. I took my one-day break from crossing the Pyrenees here. Welcome everyone to Chemin de la Nature. This path cut into sheer rock face, rising over 200 meters above the river, was completed by the engineer Paul-Marie Leroy in 1772. It was created to transport timber from the nearby forest to be used in constructing masts for French naval vessels. The passage needed to be wide and high enough for oxen pulling logs to pass through. So even those of you who are afraid of heights don't need to be afraid to walk all the way to the Refuge de Pombie like I did. The construction of this fortress lasted almost 30 years and was completed in 1870. At the time, it was imperative to build fortifications in order to control the Somport Pass road in the event of war with neighboring Spain. The fort was designed to house 400 men capable of withstanding a siege of at least a week. And as you can see, the view of this fort from this footpath is just perfect. Today, the fort is open to the public. You can order a guided tour of this military monument in the nearby tourist center. I, however, returned back to the border and continued my march along the ridge of the Pyrenees. And look what I saw near the Pic du Midi d'Ossau. As I was walking through the valley, I suddenly saw a lot of birds sitting on the surrounding slopes. I've never seen so many of them together before, so I wondered what was going on there. And when I came closer, it suddenly became clear what they were waiting for. The cow must have died just a short time before I arrived. But the vultures already knew about her. And the interest of all the other cows was a touching surprise for me. Of course, nothing could be done. And so, the whole herd of cows just watched as the vultures feasted on their friend. The griffon vulture is the most common vulture species in France and is Europe's second largest bird. Griffon vultures have a poor sense of smell, and to locate food, they rely exclusively on excellent eyesight. A soaring vulture is able to spot a 3-foot carcass from a distance of 6 kilometers. This species is monogamous, and pair bonds are often lifelong. Breeding usually begins early in the year, before the end of January. One egg is laid and is incubated by both parents for 52 to 60 days. After 4 months, the young vulture is able to fly freely. This bird of prey can live up to 41 years and plays a unique role in the food chain, which makes it irreplaceable. It specializes in eating dead animals and so prevents the spread of diseases and assists with a sort of natural recycling. The biggest population is in Spain, being more than 3/4 of the European population. I will never forget this wild natural event. If you ever search for information about the Pyrenees, this mountain will probably be one of the first images you see. Its distinctive shape makes it a symbol of the French side of the Pyrenees. At the foot of this mountain, there is a cabin where you can sleep and eat. You can also pitch a tent in its immediate vicinity. The cabin staff will advise you exactly where, because camping in the national park has its own rules. Originally, I wanted to climb to the top of the Pic du Midi from here. But in the end, I changed my mind, because for me alone, the ascent might be not only dangerous, but perhaps impossible. So I stopped at this cabin just for a snack, refilled my water bottles, and continued further into the valley. I spent the night in this valley. I washed in the river, cooked myself a warm meal, and climbed further into the mountains. Clouds covered the valley in the evening, but it was clear at the Refuge de The first cabin was built on this site in 1886 by the French Alpine Club, but the current building has been erected in 1926. Enjoy these shots from the interior, because at the time I took them, the cabin was just before a major renovation. Far from the cabin, you will find several places where you can pitch your tent. I chose a place right next to the path above the lake. After setting up my tent, I dined on canned sardines with crackers. And after sunset, a downright deafening silence spread over the lake. I crawled into my sleeping bag, studied tomorrow's trail on the map, and because I was very tired from the long walk, I soon fell asleep. I had to gather strength for tomorrow's hike, but more on that later. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to support production of more videos. Thanks for watching and see you next time.